There are moments in life when a sentence, a whisper, a thought, or an unexpected message jolts something awake inside you. It doesn't matter where it comes from, what matters is the way it cracks open a door you didn't even realize was closed. Sometimes it arrives as fear, sometimes as urgency, sometimes as a strange and sudden sense that something is calling your attention because you've been drifting too far from yourself. And in those moments, you might feel as if an invisible hand taps your shoulder and says, "Listen. You're meant for more than this." People often imagine that guidance, warnings, or spiritual nudges come to terrify them, but in truth, the deepest form of protection is clarity. When your mind is clouded, when your heart is numb or overwhelmed, when life's noise pulls you in 20 different directions, something within you begins to dim. And sometimes the universe, or your conscience, or your higher self, whatever name you give to it, creates a spark strong enough to bring you back. The message is never meant to scare you away from the world, it's meant to call you back into it fully awake. You might feel a chill when you think of the words, "Something is coming," but perhaps that something isn't tragedy. Perhaps it's change. Perhaps it's the moment you finally decide you are done allowing fear, circumstance, and other people's judgments to dictate your path. People don't transform when life is comfortable, they transform when something shakes them awake. And what feels like a warning might actually be an invitation, a reminder that you have outgrown the version of yourself you've been carrying for too long. There is a strength inside you that you've forgotten to honor. You've walked through days that felt heavier than anyone around you realized. You've fought quiet battles that would have broken others. You've stood up after moments when you could have stayed down. And yet, because you survived, you minimized your own courage. You forgot to see the power in the fact that you're still here. Sometimes the big tragedy we fear most is not an event outside us, but the slow erosion of our purpose. Losing yourself is a tragedy. Living a life that does not reflect who you really are is a tragedy. Silencing your intuition is a tragedy. Allowing fear to decide your choices is one of the greatest tragedies of all. So when something within you says, "Listen now, don't ignore this," perhaps it is not predicting doom, perhaps it is begging you to stop abandoning yourself, and if you imagine an angelic figure calling to you, imagine him not as a warning bearer but as a guardian of your courage, a symbol of clarity slicing through confusion. Imagine a voice that doesn't condemn you but refuses to let you sleepwalk through your own existence. A voice that says, "Wake up. You're walking toward an extraordinary chapter, but you have to stop letting fear choose your direction. You are not meant to be small. You are not meant to shrink when challenges appear. You are not meant to fold under the weight of uncertainty. Every great life requires moments of surrender and moments of decision, times when you must look the unknown in the eyes and say, "I'm ready for what comes next." The truth is, people sometimes sense change coming long before it arrives. Your mind may interpret it as dread because it can't yet see the shape of what's unfolding. But not all endings are devastating. Sometimes the thing that collapses is the version of your life that was never aligned with your soul. And when it collapses, it feels like chaos at first. But later, when you look back, you realize it was the most profound act of protection you ever received. Every time you've lost something you thought you couldn't live without, something better grew in its place. Every time a door closed, a new path eventually opened, one that would not have appeared had you stayed where you were. And every time you thought you were breaking, you were really being reshaped. Fear tries to convince you that change is danger. Courage teaches you that change is birth. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a moment that will shift the trajectory of your life. Not because you are doomed, but because you are done pretending that mediocrity is enough for your spirit. The world has tested you, and yet you are still here, still capable of choosing something higher. Every breath you take is proof of resilience. Every morning you wake up carries an unspoken message. There is more for you. Perhaps the message you felt today was not a threat but a mirror. A call to stop hesitating. A reminder that you've been postponing decisions that could liberate you. A signal that the life you truly want is waiting, but it cannot move toward you until you move toward it. You may feel guided, protected, pushed, or pulled. You may sense that something beyond your current understanding is steering you toward a future you can't yet imagine. But that is not a curse, it is a blessing. It is the universe insisting that your story is not finished. It is life itself saying, I refuse to let you give up on yourself, and maybe that imagined angelic voice, the one that says, don't skip this moment, is really the part of you that is tired of being ignored. The part that wants you to stop living passively. The part that knows you are capable of rising above everything that once held you down. The part that knows your future requires your full participation, not your fear. There will always be challenges. There will always be uncertainty. But tragedy does not define you. What defines you is the way you choose to rise, the way you choose to interpret the signs around you. The way you use every moment as an opportunity to step closer to the person you were meant to become. You are not in danger, you are in transformation. The unknown ahead of you is not a punishment but a path, and deep within you, whether you call it intuition, guidance, a guardian, or simply your highest self, something is whispering, open your heart. Open your eyes. Open the door you've been avoiding. I am trying to save your life, not from doom, but from living beneath your potential. There comes a time when silence becomes heavy, not because the world has gone quiet, but because your soul refuses to keep whispering what it needs. You've ignored your inner voice before, you've pushed aside the feeling that something essential was missing. That you were meant to rise higher than the life you were settling for. But the further you drifted from yourself, the louder the universe became, orchestrating small jolts, subtle signs, and moments that forced you to pause. These are not punishments, they are invitations to return. You may not realize it yet, but you stand at a threshold. One foot in the past that shaped you, the other in the future that calls your name. Thresholds are uncomfortable places. They demand honesty. They demand courage. They demand that you stop pretending you are powerless. And as you linger there, feeling the pull of both sides, something in you knows that the way forward is not marked by fear but by awakening. Awakening does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, like dawn creeping across a horizon. At first you feel only the faintest glow of possibility. Then the shadows around you begin to dissolve, and the paths you once thought were dead ends reveal themselves as beginnings you were not ready for. You start to see that the warnings you once interpreted as danger were actually signals pointing toward your strength. You begin to understand that the voice urging you to pay attention is not here to frighten you, it is here to guide you, and perhaps the greatest realization of all is that you have never been as alone as you believed. Life has a way of placing the right lessons at your feet, even when you don't want them. Pain taught you resilience. Loss taught you clarity. Disappointment taught you discernment. And fear, though you may not want to admit it, taught you humility, grounding, and the ability to recognize what truly matters. You have walked through darkness before, not because the world sought to break you, but because you needed to discover the light you carry within. And each time you survived something you thought would destroy you, that inner flame grew stronger. You learned to navigate storms. You learned to rebuild. You learned to reinterpret challenges as catalysts, so if something in you feels urgent today, if you sensed a message, a tug, a strange stirring, it might be because you are ready for a new level of growth. The kind that requires bravery. The kind that requires letting go of old versions of yourself. The kind that requires stepping more fully into the life that once intimidated you. Remember this: what you fear is rarely as powerful as what you are destined to become. Fear is loud but fragile. Purpose is quiet but unstoppable. And purpose has a way of reshaping everything it touches. Imagine for a moment that the big tragedy you were warned about is simply the tragedy of continuing to live with your light dimmed. You have brilliance inside you that the world has yet to see. You have potential you have not dared to claim. You have dreams you have buried under layers of routine, exhaustion, hesitation, or doubt. And sometimes the universe must shake you, not to hurt you, but to remind you to rise. Growth demands disruption. Transformation demands discomfort. A life-changing chapter demands that you walk through a doorway you once feared. But on the other side of that doorway, the version of you who thrives is waiting. You may not know exactly what you're stepping into. That's the beauty of it. Certainty is not required, only willingness. When you take a single step in the direction of your true self, the entire world responds. Opportunities appear. Synchronicities align. People show up. Paths reveal themselves. Life begins to flow differently, as though it recognizes that you've finally decided to stop resisting your own evolution. And if you think you need a sign before you move, understand this. The feeling you have right now is the sign. The urgency in your chest means you are ready. The restlessness you cannot explain means something within you refuses to stay stuck any longer. The spark of inspiration, even if it's small, is evidence of something greater awakening. There is a future version of you who already knows the outcome of this turning point. They look back at this moment with gratitude, not fear. They see how every hesitation dissolved once you chose courage. They see how the life you once thought was far away began unfolding the moment you said yes to yourself. You are not meant to skip this chapter. You are not meant to ignore the call. Something in the world needs the person you are becoming. Someone will be inspired because you refuse to stay small. Someone will find strength because you found your own. Someone will choose hope because you lived yours. Let this be the moment you stop running from your own greatness. Let this be the moment you reclaim the power you gave away. Let this be the moment you honor every part of you that has waited patiently to be acknowledged. You are on the edge of something extraordinary. And the universe, whether through intuition, dreams, synchronicities, or sudden messages, will keep nudging you until you step into the life aligned with your truth. You do not need to be afraid of what's coming. What's coming is you, fully awakened, fully alive, and finally ready to rise. There is a quiet power that appears in your life the moment you decide you are done being governed by fear. It does not roar into existence or announce itself with fanfare. Instead, it rises slowly, steadily, like strength remembering its name. And the more you embrace it, the more you begin to understand that everything you once interpreted as threat was actually preparation. Everything that unsettled you was pushing you toward a truth you had been avoiding. For so long, you walked through life collecting invisible weights, expectations, disappointments, memories that lingered like shadows, doubts that disguised themselves as caution. You carried them because you thought you had no other choice. But what if the message you felt today was not warning you about what might hurt you, but reminding you to put those weights down? What if the tragedy was not something looming in the distance, but the possibility of continuing to live burdened when you are meant to ascend? You deserve to rise unburdened. You deserve to breathe freely. You deserve to move into your future without dragging the past behind you like chains. And perhaps that urgent feeling inside your chest is the realization that you are not meant to keep living the same story. You are not meant to stay in places that drain your spirit. You are not meant to shrink yourself to fit into chapters that have already ended. There is courage sleeping beneath your hesitation, waiting for the moment you finally say, enough. Enough of holding back. Enough of dimming yourself. Enough of telling yourself you are not ready. Enough of believing that your dreams are too big, too far, too impossible. You would not feel the pull towards something greater if you were not capable of becoming it. You have survived storms that would have frightened your younger self. You have risen from moments that once seemed impossible. You have rebuilt after losses that left others unable to continue. Your strength is not a theory, it is a history. It is etched into your spirit. And every time you felt alone in your struggle, you were being shaped for a future that requires exactly the resilience you forged. Imagine for a moment that the voice calling to you, the one you perceived as angelic, stern, urgent, is not warning you of disaster but urging you into alignment. Imagine it as the part of your soul that refuses to let you settle. A protector within you saying, "Wake up. There is a life ahead of you that requires your whole heart." And if you feel that urgency, it is not because something terrible is approaching, it is because something astonishing is. Major change often arrives disguised as tension, uncertainty, or pressure. That pressure is the sign that your life is expanding. That tension is the sign that something inside you is breaking open to let more light in. And the fear you feel is simply your old self reacting to the idea of being left behind, because truthfully, your old self cannot follow you where you are going. The doubt, the hesitation, the self-criticism, the lingering wounds of yesterday, they cannot survive in the next version of your life. And so they resist. They cling. They try to convince you that it is safer to stay the same. But deep down, you know you were not born to stay unchanged. You may not see the full picture yet, but you feel the shift. Life is rearranging itself around you. New paths are aligning. Old patterns are dissolving. The universe is preparing space for the person you are becoming. And the reason the message felt urgent is because this moment matters. Not because danger is coming, but because destiny is calling. There will always be moments that ask you to leap before you feel ready. There will always be transitions that feel like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of what lies below. But life has a way of catching you when you trust yourself. Every time you stepped forward in faith, even trembling faith, the ground appeared beneath your feet. And this time will be no different. You are capable of walking through uncertainty with grace. You are capable of choosing hope even when doubt tempts you. You are capable of trusting your inner voice over your inner fear. And the more you do, the more you will discover that the tragedy you thought was approaching was never real. It was only the illusion that you were powerless. You are not powerless. You are becoming powerful in a way you have not even fully recognized yet. Consider how many times life tried to break you, and yet here you are, still breathing, still seeking, still believing that there is more for you. That belief alone is a form of destiny. People without purpose do not feel this kind of pull. People without a future do not sense urgency. People without inner greatness do not feel called to attention. If you feel something calling you, even if you cannot explain it, it is because there is more meant for you. More strength. More clarity. More purpose. More life, and not a single warning, message, whisper, or sign is telling you to be afraid. They are telling you to awaken. You are ready. Even if you doubt it, you are ready. there is something extraordinary that happens when a person stops resisting the truth inside them. At first, it arrives quietly, like a subtle shift in the air, a feeling you can't explain but can't ignore. You try to brush it off, distract yourself, numb it, or pretend it means nothing. But the feeling persists, circling back again and again, waiting for the moment you finally turn toward it instead of away. And when you do, even for a second, you realize it's not fear speaking, it's alignment. You may have convinced yourself for years that you were not meant for anything remarkable, that life's difficulties were evidence of your limits rather than your resilience. But that story is dissolving now. You can feel it. It's as if the universe is reshaping your understanding of yourself, urging you to see the truth you've overlooked. You were never weak. You were never lost. You were never abandoned. You were only becoming. Sometimes becoming feels like breaking. Sometimes awakening feels like danger, not because something bad is coming, but because the life you've outgrown is falling away. And loss, even the loss of old versions of yourself, can feel terrifying. But beneath the fear is something ancient, wise, and steady. Something that has always guided you even when you were too overwhelmed to notice. Something inside you is whispering now, not with panic, but with certainty, do not fear this. This is transformation. There is a version of you that the world has never seen. Because you have never allowed yourself to step fully into your own light. You've dimmed yourself to fit, softened yourself to avoid conflict, made yourself small so others would not feel threatened. But the time for shrinking has ended. When life calls you to rise, it will not allow you to hide. Think of all the times you felt like giving up. Think of all the nights you lay awake, feeling like everything was falling apart. Think of the moments when you felt invisible, unheard, misunderstood, or unimportant. Those moments were not signs of failure, they were the places where your spirit was refining itself. They were the chapters in which you learned strength without realizing it. They were the silent battles preparing you for something greater, and now, as your life begins to shift, as intuitive messages become stronger, as your inner voice grows louder, as synchronicities appear with increasing frequency, something in you recognizes the pattern. You are being moved. Not forced, moved. Moved toward clarity. Moved toward courage. Moved toward the future that has waited patiently for you to stop doubting yourself. The urgency you feel is not a warning of catastrophe, it is a call to courage. A call to step out of the shadows of your old life. A call to make decisions that honor who you truly are. A call to finally take ownership of your story rather than letting fear write it for you. You may have imagined this voice as the firm presence of an archangel, a guardian, a higher being who refuses to let you walk blindly into self-destruction. And maybe that image is exactly what you needed, something strong, unwavering, impossible to ignore. But the true power of that voice is not that it comes from above, it comes from within. It speaks in the language you understand, symbolic, urgent, protective. It pushes you because you've reached a point where gentle nudges are no longer enough. You are standing on the edge of a powerful transition. You can sense it. Your energy feels different. Your priorities feel different. The way you see yourself is starting to change, even if only in small ways. And those small shifts matter. They are the first signs of a profound inner rebirth. Maybe you've outgrown the habits that once kept you stagnant. Maybe you're realizing that people you once clung to cannot walk with you into the next phase. Maybe you're discovering that the dreams you buried long ago are resurfacing. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you're willing to consider that you deserve something more. This moment, this exact moment, might be the turning point you look back on one day with awe. The moment you stopped running from your own potential. The moment you allowed yourself to believe that you were destined for more than survival. The moment you chose to respond to the call instead of dismissing it. Every great journey begins when a person says yes to themselves. And that yes doesn't have to be loud, dramatic, or public. It can be quiet. It can be whispered. It can be shaky. But once spoken, it activates something unstoppable. It signals to the universe that you are ready to receive what has always been meant for you, so breathe. Let the tension wrap around you without fear. Let the sensation of urgency remind you that you are alive, awakening, unfolding. Let the part of you that senses guidance trust that you are not being warned of destruction, you are being prepared for ascension. This is not the beginning of fear, this is the beginning of becoming. You may not realize it yet, but something inside you has already crossed a threshold. Even before your mind could understand it, your spirit made the decision to rise. Awakening begins long before the conscious self accepts it. The soul always moves first. And while the mind clings to the familiar, the heart knows when it's time to grow. That inner pull you've been feeling, whether it came to you as a message, a warning, a dream, or a sudden sense of urgency, is simply the soul declaring, "I will not stay where I no longer belong." And so the universe responds. Life rearranges itself around your intention. Situations shift. People drift in or out. Opportunities appear. Obstacles rise only to push you onto the right path. Not because fate is testing you, but because elevation requires recalibration. You cannot take every burden, every fear, every attachment, and every outdated belief into the future that is meant for you. Some parts of your old life must fall away so the new one can breathe. Often, the letting go feels like loss. But what if it isn't loss at all? What if it is liberation? What if the things you feel slipping from your grasp are the very things that once kept you from recognizing your own power? What if the universe is not taking anything from you, but freeing your hands so you can finally receive what is yours? The human heart struggles with change because it clings to familiarity even when that familiarity hurts. You've held on to things out of habit, out of loyalty, out of fear that nothing better would come. But that fear was never truth. It was only the echo of past wounds, old stories you told yourself when you didn't know how strong you were. Now you do. Or at least you're starting to, and the more you awaken, the more you begin to recognize that what once frightened you no longer has the same power. You notice that challenges you once avoided now look like opportunities to grow. You see that people who once intimidated you no longer affect your sense of worth. You feel that decisions you once hesitated to make now come with surprising clarity. This is what happens when you stop resisting your own evolution. The world stops resisting you. You may wonder what triggered all this. Why today? Why now? Why this strange, powerful message that shook you awake and demanded your attention? Perhaps it appeared because you were slipping into patterns that no longer served you, and your spirit refused to let you drift back into sleep. Perhaps it appeared because the timing of your life is aligning with a new chapter that requires readiness. Or perhaps it appeared simply because you asked, in some hidden corner of your heart, for guidance, even if you never spoke the words aloud. Guidance always comes. But it rarely comes in the way you expect. Sometimes it feels gentle. Sometimes it feels like a whisper. Sometimes it feels like a push. And sometimes, when the stakes are high and your path is about to shift dramatically, it feels like urgency. Not because doom is near, but because destiny is. You are being prepared. Strengthened. Sharpened. Awakened. Your intuition is becoming louder because it must be. Your awareness is expanding because the next phase of your life requires a deeper version of you, more grounded, more courageous, more conscious of your own value. And you are closer to that version than you realize. Think of the times you ignored your intuition in the past. Think of how life became harder each time you silenced the truth you already knew. And think of the relief you felt every time you finally listened. You are being shown, once again, that listening to yourself is not optional. It is survival, not physical survival, but the survival of your purpose, your joy, your authenticity. The voice that called out to you did not say, "Be afraid." It said, "Pay attention." And there is a profound difference between the two. Fear paralyzes. Awareness empowers. Fear blinds. Awareness illuminates. Fear shrinks you. Awareness expands you. What you felt was expansion approaching, and expansion always brings a sense of pressure before it unfolds. Imagine a seed pushing against the shell that once protected it. If it could think, it might interpret that pressure as danger, as something terrifying, as the end of its existence. But in reality, it is only the beginning. It is breaking open because life inside it is demanding to grow. The shell cannot contain the potential anymore. And neither can yours. You are that seed. And life is calling you to break open, not violently, not destructively, but naturally. Inevitably. Beautifully. The shell of your old identity is cracking because you have outgrown it. The constraints of the person you once were can no longer contain the person you are becoming. And while the breaking feels uncomfortable, the expansion will feel like freedom. You do not need to know what comes next. You only need to trust that something within you knows the way. You are being guided towards something meaningful, purposeful, transformative. And even if you feel the tremble of fear, let it be accompanied by the warmth of recognition. You've been preparing for this moment your entire life. Something extraordinary is unfolding, not outside of you, within you.